Hello and welcome to another episode of the Collaborative Approach in Education. This week's episode is called The Art of Choosing a Great Book.
So looking at choosing a great book, I think that this is a really good opportunity for educators to intentionally think about why they're choosing the book that they pick up. I think that we often just pick books up that might look funny or have sound like have things in it that isn't quite maybe as educational as others. So I think when you're choosing a good book, the most important thing is to have rhyme, rhythm, and repetition. And so by having rhyme, it creates predictable patterns and helps sequencing, which will help children remember longer strings of words and help children to notice and understand sounds within words, which is all great pre-reading skills. And then when it comes to repetition, it's not about just reading the book once or twice. It's about really getting to know the book. At a lot of my services, I speak to the educators about choosing a book, reading it all the way through without asking questions, and going from start to back, and letting the children experience the book before starting to ask about comprehension or characters or what's the book made up of. And once you get to that stage, like really you can start to look into what meanings and are in the book. And I think when you actually look at a great book, it has so much more than you think in it. So yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of missed opportunities when reading a book. I think everyone's sort of grasped onto that. The more that you read, the more things you know kind of thing, and
Yeah.
just assume that just reading books is, but there's so much more to it and so many more opportunities
Mm.
that just get missed.
Yeah, well, with repetition, because it's so valuable to have like the time and the experience and the knowledge, because it becomes more secure, and then it helps the young readers become more self-confident in answering the questions because they have like the proper understanding of it. And like each time they'll hear new learning from it, and it's um
I have to say, even myself, if I've read a book, it's like watching a movie.
yeah.
Sometimes you've got to watch it multiple times and you pick up new things
Mm.
every single time. And there's books that I've read multiple times and then, you know, find different things each time and go, oh, I didn't notice that. A child might pick something out in a picture and go, oh,
Yeah, because
is
that's
that
their
it?
sole focus, is
Yeah.
they're looking at the pictures and
And we're too focused on the
on the
words.
words. Yeah.
But it's like you said before, it gives you that sense of security too, because it's like I myself, I'm not a really big reader, but when I'm listening to books or I'm watching a movie that I have watched before, it gives that sense of, I don't know, that security that it feels good. It's like watching your favorite movie again,
Mm.
and it just gives you all those good feelings. And I think it's the same thing for the children when they're listening to the same story over and over again.
Mm.
As much as we sometimes might find it boring, having to read the same book for them is really reassuring. It's like they are in control, they know what's going to happen next.
Yeah, because we all know, like,
Yeah.
children like to. My child has at the moment got like an absolute obsession with this one book,
Mm.
and every day it just comes out. And that is the only book she wants to read at the
Mm.
moment. And it has been going on for, I swear, like a month at the moment. But she's
Mm.
really, I mean, she's two,
Mm.
but she's starting to pick up on things that are
Mm.
happening in it. And she'll, her language is obviously only just, she's only got a couple of words that she's sort of saying fluently at the moment, but she's, pointing to things and then she's trying to, explain why or what's happening in
Mm.
her own little way. And,
Mm.
it is every time she brings the book, I'm like, here we go again.
Yeah.
But she just lights up. She absolutely loves it.
I had that with the green sheet when my son was the similar age, and yeah, by the time he was 2, he could confidently read the book. He wasn't reading the words; he
Mhm.
was retelling it.
Yeah.
And he, you get so excited because when I would say, here is the near sheep, I'd always bring the book closer, and here is the far sheep and move it further away, so he could put that into context. And he always just like he
He
grasped those.
grasped it and
Yeah.
started doing it himself.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. And yeah, just and loved like when the question page would come up, and even just repeating and doing that, he understood what a question was from an early age without knowing like the meaning of a question.
Yeah.
So it's like it's so important, and if they've got that that they like, it's like you're saying, like a book that she gravitates to, then like run with it. It's the children's interest and that kind of thing.
You can get them to focus onto the words as well, like as they grow older and you're pointing at the words and they know what a writing looks like. And then also you can get them to point and look at the pictures, and you can get them involved to look at other things as well, other than just listening to the story.
And then when you use books that have rhyme, they can then they can
Finish
predict.
this, predict and finish the sentence.
Yeah, that's right. And it helps set up those early reading, like where it's just a slight change of letters and like the IGHT sound, which is such a difficult like sound to learn. But when they're learning, like light, fight, might, like there's multiple words that have that, it becomes easy that they just have to put the letter in front of it.
Well, it's quite funny to hear what they like if they're not actually sure we're reading a book for the first time, to just be rhyming, because often with a rhyme, obviously it then follows through, and just to kind of stop and let them come up, and the different variations of what they think it might be can be quite interesting.
Yeah, and are they really listening to the book? Because if they're really listening, then generally they'll come up with the right answer, because it's it's quite obvious what it's going to be. But yeah, I think a great book obviously sparks a lot of imagination and curiosity and wonder when they're listening to it. But a great book is something that can be extended upon. So, when choosing a book, I absolutely love Pamela Allen when looking at books. Most of my favorite books are Pamela Allen. And one of my, I think, favorites for the kindergarten age is probably Who Sank the Boat. And because it talks about first, second, third, but what I love most about it is it's a whole, there's 5 different animals that get into a boat, and then eventually the last animal jumps in, which is a mouse. And it starts with it's got like a donkey and a cow, like quite heavy animals. And then right at the end, the mouse jumps in and the boat sinks. But when you look at the pictures on the last page, that mouse is actually never gets wet. It doesn't actually touch the actual boat. And so when they're talking about who did sink the boat, they a lot of the kids put their hand up, it's the mouse, it's the mouse. But like the mouse is not heavy enough. And but it could possibly be the mouse. Like there's so many ways to end that story of who actually sank the boat. But then then going into all the maths that comes with that book, and then I like to get all the animals out and put the book away. Which animal came first? Which one came second? And that book has great rhyming in it as well, and it has a really good rhythm. So like when I talk about rhythm, it's like a song, like it repeats itself. It's predictable, it's catchy, and it's something that the kids can easily respond to. But then when you're talking about like early reading, one of the really good books is like Dear Zoo by Rod Campbell. And like a lot of people would have heard of Dear Zoo. It's really like a nice basic book. But again, it has that really nice rhythm in it. And like the younger kids just love it because it's like that peekaboo type book. But then it has words like heavy and grumpy and, those really descriptive, language. Have you got a favorite book, Danny? Or
Well, my favorite book at the moment is Have You Filled a Bucket Today? By Carol McLeod. And it's all about encouraging positive behavior, as this is my passion in a way. And children can see how rewarding it is to express daily kindness. And I started doing this with my kindy room this year, and I did it last year as well. And it was amazing because then we started a whole project about kindness, and then we bought buckets for the classroom, And then every time they did something kind, they put a pom-pom in the bucket, like filling our buckets, the buckets of the classroom. We made it quite visual. And then they decided what we were going to do if the bucket was full, when the bucket was full. And then they decided what kind of party. So we had a dress-up party with like shared food and music and disco lights. And anyway, so it was a whole project that just by reading that book once and seeing how engaged they were with the story became a 6 months project. And we read the book again. We would read the book every week with them, and they were always interested. And last year I did the same with my other class, and they then decided to create their own bucket book. So we illustrated our own book, and and everybody got it for Christmas. So I feel like
It's so
I
funny
love
you
books
say that
like
too,
that.
because then when I do parent teacher interviews, that book usually comes up
Yeah.
every year. And then when you do parent teacher interviews, they're always like, oh, my son talks about the other son being a bucket dipper, or
Yeah.
then
Well,
they
you're
take that
dipping my bucket,
home.
Mum.
Yeah, they take that home, and that's what really tells you that it's ingrained. They're now teaching others about it.
Yes.
They want to show kindness, and how can they go about that? And I think that's a really good analogy for them to understand that feeling of being kind and how it feels. And
like the feeling, because they don't have that concept of feeling, but understand that filling someone's bucket or dipping into it, like they really understand that concept. I had like one mom that she came to me and she said that the other day she was making a sandwich for her husband, and then she said, oh, here you go, you can take the sandwich to work. And then her daughter said to her, oh, well done, Mom, you're being a bucket filler.
Yeah.
So it's like they are taking it to their houses, and like the parents have said to me that they are using those concepts as well. Like if they are being, nasty to their siblings, like, are you being a bucket filler or a dipper?
And I love how it also is so that when you fill someone else's bucket, it can fill your own bucket.
Yes.
So like it's has that nice feel.
And then the whole thing of the project, that's what we did too, was that when we did like our circle times, we wouldn't be talking about the kind things that we did. I wanted them to tell me kind things that they saw somebody else doing.
Yeah.
So that somebody else did to them, or they saw somebody else doing it to another person. So because otherwise it wouldn't be a natural thing, would it be something that they would just be doing things like, because I've seen that in the past, they'll be hugging someone here. Like, I'm hugging, look at me.
For the
Just for the recognition to be a bucket filler and put the pom pom in the jar and whatever. So it was actually good because I actually made them feel good. So that person that's noticed the kind action was mentioning about somebody else, and they were really excited when somebody, like one of their peers, was mentioning about something kind that they did that they didn't even realize that they did it.
Well, we know ourselves what it feels like when people actually pull us up and be like, I really love that you did that, or whatever. Like it makes us feel really good. So that, that would be like magnified for a child.
Yeah, exactly. Especially having a friend, saying it. Because if you have an adult, it's great, but having a friend that's like, oh yeah, I did that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, no, I think like I mentioned to the girls before about the Harry McClary book as well. And if you look into the picture of Harry McClary, and it's it's the basic Harry McClary book, Harry McClary from Donaldson's Dairy. And when you look at the pictures, it actually goes up in twos. And in that story, it's, talking without saying it, it's showing you that all the dogs are actually neighbors, and talking about, well, what is a neighbor, what can we do for our neighbors, and how do we become a community. And like there's so many hidden messages into books, and when authors write a book, a really good intentional author, that's what they want for the reader, is to be able to extend on that, and for children to learn multiple things from their story, not just the words on the page. So
I think one of like my favorite book is actually a book that has no words whatsoever, The Bee and Me, by Alison Jay. And it literally has absolutely no words whatsoever. And the whole book is basically, it's about friendship, a little girl with friendship with a bee, and the bee takes her on a discovery journey, and they, take to action some conservation. It's sort of about like the ecosystem, etc. But the way that children can interpret the pictures can be quite different to how you would as well. And, the book's quite heavily illustrated, obviously, because there are no words. And every time I read that book, there was new things that would come up every single time. And like, as you just said, when we were talking about it earlier, I've read that book, that Harry McCleary book, a billion times over the years, and I've never taken notice of the numbers on the letterbox. Never.
Yeah.
I'd never even considered the fact that they were neighbors.
Yeah, that's like that sole focus of the children is looking at the pictures, because at that stage they can't read yet.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's very interesting.
It is.
And I think that you can even use the strategies from the Becedarian approach. And the Becedarian approach is a set of evidence-based teaching and learning strategies for early childhood educators and parents to use with children from birth to 5. So like the same way as, and one of the strategies that they teach us is the conversational reading. So like you said before, like looking at the pictures and asking questions, it's actually perfect. Maybe it's even better if you do that in a one-on-one or one educator with 2 children, better than even in a bigger group, when you can look at those pictures, and like you said with the Harry McClary, then you can stop and ask questions about each page and get them to really look into it, and you can be having the conversational reading with them.
Yeah, with the background knowledge of the book. And I mean,
Yeah.
I think say for a kindergarten room during rest time, that's a really great opportunity for those non-resters, is to have, whether you have a set of books or whether you choose a book and you photocopy it so that every child's got it in your little group, because sometimes there's like 4 or 5 kids up, and as the year goes on, obviously there's more. But so they can all sit there and really unpack the book together. And even if it is over the week, it's just like really, and those non-sleepers usually are the ones that are definitely going to school the next year. And just having that more one-on-one time, like you say, and unpacking it in a way that's different to a larger group. Yeah.
Yes, and there are ways that you can do that. Like I know how hard it can be because the ratios are quite high too, but you can have volunteers. You can, contact the aged care next to you, so or any other ways to get people to come in to volunteer for those one-on-one or 1 or 2 times to read books, and you can share the strategies you learn in this podcast too.
Yeah, and I think it's really important, like if you do a parent teacher night, to really, talk about the importance of reading to your children, and making a really good habit of reading to them, so they have a love of reading. They've got great foundations of it, because it's such an important skill. You can't really do maths without language, because you can't read a problem and understand it without having that language and comprehension skills. So it really is the foundation of all other subjects that you learn throughout school. So
I think, it is something that does, get left behind, is the actual, like the language side of language and literacy. There's such a focus on the literacy and the, often, like as you're saying, like if you're talking with parents and stuff at the parent teacher interview, you're talking about reading them books and things like that, but they're not necessarily understanding that it's not just about the letters on the page. It's actually about the oral language side of things, which often gets missed in a lot of early childhood, because people are focusing so heavily on the the phonics and the letter recognition and things like that, whereas the oral language is really the foundation of it all. And so I think it's really important that we're actually,
and I think having like book packs to send home with parents, that's like been a little project for us. Upcoming project for us as well, where you send a pack home with like one book, and it's got, it might have the characters of the book in like figurines, and like a comprehension page, and something that they can utilize and learn for themselves, because all these families aren't educators themselves. They haven't got training, but if they have those little prompts to help them and go, oh yeah, like that's an easy skill to kind of do when you've got got it all right in front of you. So
Yeah,
having those kind
that's
of,
awesome.
yeah.
And I think it's also important to mention because we do have lots of multicultural families that, families that do have English as a second language. And I have had that project, that with my families as well, where we were sharing books with them and sending books home to encourage reading. And I have had lots of families coming back saying, but I don't know how to pronounce those words. I don't want to teach them wrong. I don't want to teach the wrong pronunciation. I don't want to, I don't know if I'm saying it right, but it's all about really having those moments. And even if you can't read those words, you point at the pictures, you tell the story the way you can, the language you're comfortable with, to develop that passion for reading.
Yeah.
And then the
rest will
proper
come.
words,
They'll
come
come.
later. They will learn it. Like, I don't know anybody that went to school and didn't learn how to read, so they will. But what we
Eventually,
want to do as parents is develop that passion for reading. And the same thing will go with educators sometimes. If you're a bit more embarrassed, if English is a second language, they don't want to read a book to the whole group. So they can start with one child and look at the pictures and,
I
get
think
that.
though, like you find most books would be on YouTube now.
Yes.
So if you're like driving to work, listen to the book before you get to work.
Yeah.
So then you have a little bit more confidence. It's just like a child.
Yes.
If you read it to them over and over, they have more confidence to, answer the questions. And so if they, commit to learning the story so that they can really set those foundations up for the children. Because it's only going to take 5 minutes out of your probably 20-minute drive is a roundabout
An
time.
average, yeah.
Yeah, so like, and if you just concentrate on one book a week, even as an educator, if you're feeling like uncomfortable or not confident,
Yes.
I think it's just really important to start somewhere.
Yes, that's right.
But yeah, some other of my just like favorite authors, and we'll probably put up some book collections and get some ideas from the listeners and what your favorite books are. But I mean, I love Pamela Allen, Mem Fox, Eric Carle, Julia Donaldson.
Oh yeah, I was going to say
Yeah.
I love her.
Linley Dodd is who writes all the McClary books, and Rod Campbell. But there are so many out there. But we would love to hear and see what your favorite authors are and illustrators. Just sort of we'll get like a bit of a book list going for our listeners.
Thank you for joining us on this week's episode of the Collaborative Approach in Education. Until next time, keep inspiring young minds. Please like, share and follow us on Facebook and Instagram. If there are any topics that you would like to discuss, please let us know in the comments below.